My name's Robin Payne and welcome to this piano lesson. In this lesson, I'll look at how to use the piano as a solo instrument, as an accompanying instrument, and how to improvise and a lot more. You'll learn the basics of reading music and how to develop your ear. Some people may say, "Oh, I can't play the piano, I don't read music." But who says you have to read to be able to play the piano anyway? It all depends on what you want to do with your playing. Most musicians are either a strong reader or have a strong ear, and of course you can be very good at both. I will teach you how to both read and develop your ear. Having a good ear means that you can play what you hear fairly quickly without having to read the notes. Once you know how you want to use your piano playing, whether it's accompanying yourself singing and writing songs or playing music written by other composers, you can decide how much time you put into reading practice. It's important to use the correct posture when playing the piano. If possible, choose an adjustable stool like this one. Your forearms should be roughly parallel to the floor when your hands are resting on the keyboard. Your elbows should be slightly higher than the keys. To establish the correct hand position, hold your hand with the palm facing up and imagine you are holding an orange. Then turn your hand over and place it on the keys with your fingers gently curved. Fingers are never straight on the piano keyboard. Keep the wrist in line with the forearm and try not to bend it up or down. Keep your fingernails short, otherwise they'll click on the keys, and this is distracting for anyone listening and will force you to play with straightened fingers, which is poor technique. When you look at the piano keys for the first time, it could look overwhelming with all those keys. It's easy to break down the piano keyboard into something much smaller. Look at the keys and see how the black keys are grouped in 2s and 3s alternately. The keyboard is basically the same 12 notes repeated over and over. And we have those 12 notes, those 12 notes there, those 12 notes there. So starting at the black key to the left of the group of 3, play the 5 notes in order. Notice they have a particularly oriental sound to them. If you hold down the right pedal and run your finger along the keys from bottom to top, you will make a bit of a harp sound. The white keys are named using the first 7 letters of the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F and G. The white key to the left of the 2 black keys here is called C. Look at the keyboard now, spotting each pair of blacks, and point to all the Cs. If you play all the white notes in order from one C to the next, you will play a scale of C major. The distance from one C to the very next C is called an octave. We divide the octave into 12 equal parts called semitones. If we count the black and white keys between one C and the next, we have 12 notes, not including the second C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Note the groups of black notes in 2s and 3s in each octave. We use the words sharp and flat to name the black notes. The C in the middle of your piano is called middle C. Place your right thumb on middle C, then rest the remaining fingers on the 4 white notes to the right of middle C. My fingers are now covering C, D, E, F and G. Keeping the fingers assigned to these keys only, play up and down. you're comfortable playing this, make up some of your own melodies by rearranging the order of the notes. In piano playing, we number the fingers on each hand as thumb, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Most music that has fingering written on it refers to the thumb as 1. Now put the thumb of the left hand on middle C and play down the keys with the other fingers. We're now playing C, B, A, G and F. Here's a little coordination exercise. Put both thumbs on middle C and play the same fingers at the same time. Now that we know where to put our fingers, let's play a tune that we all know well. Mary Had a Little Lamb. Try it with both hands separately. If you're ready for a challenge, try it with both hands playing together. We can now make it sound a bit nicer by playing an accompaniment to it by playing simple chords in the left hand. Play C, E and G together with the left hand. This chord is known as C or C major. Now play B, D and G together. This chord is G major. Now we'll play Mary Had a Little Lamb with the chords in the left hand. Jingle Bells is another very easy tune to play. To learn this, apply the same method of learning this as the previous tune. Play the hands separately, then together, and then with the left hand chordal accompaniment. We'll also have to add a new chord. This chord is the F major chord, and its notes are C, F, and A. And here's one more to keep you busy, Ode to Joy. The accompanying chords are C and G only. If you were learning weekly from a teacher, you'd be given these exercises in your first lesson and left to play with them for a week before moving on to something new, so give it time. Let's use the three chords we've learnt so far, C, F and G. Now start by putting the left hand thumb on C and play the C major chord with the right hand. Then put the left hand fifth finger on F and play the F major chord in the right hand. And now put the left hand fourth finger on G and play the G major chord in the right hand. Here's an interesting little exercise using these chords. And here's another exercise to follow it with the hands playing at different times. Notice how I change the fingering on the C chord depending on which chord is about to follow it. It's all about flow. From C to F, I play the C chord with the fingers 1, 2 and 4, which lets the fingers flow to the F chord. Then I play the C chord with different fingers if I'm going to play the G, and the fingers I use there are 1, 3 and 5. We've already played the simplest scale on the piano, C major, which is all the white keys starting on C and ending on the next C. It's really important to use the correct fingering for this, because if you don't, you'll only get to a basic level of piano playing and you won't be able to progress much further. I'll play it in the right hand. And in the left. To play this well, we need to have a look at how to swing the thumb under the third finger. Try practicing this to get used to it. Put the third finger on the right hand on the E and practice swinging the thumb under so that you can get used to going to the F. Same with the left hand. Put the third finger on the A and practice swinging the thumb under. Use this backing track to practice the scale with. It'll make it interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get used to naming the notes as you play them, and at the same time, get used to their position in the scale. For example, in the C major scale, C equals 1, D equals 2, E equals 3, F equals 4, G equals 5, A equals 6, and B equals 7. It's most important that you're very familiar with the note names and the numbers, as we'll be referring to them both ways. Now, we'll play the scale degrees of 1, 3 and 5, that is every second note, and play them with the fingers 1, 3 and 5 of the right hand. They sound quite nice when they're played together. We've already played this and we know it is the chord of C major. Now find F, or the fourth degree, and play every second note, F, A, C. We also did this in the last lesson and know it is called F major. However, we played the notes in a different order. Now do the same with the fifth degree, G, B and D. This chord is called G major. You can build the chords anywhere on the piano by doing this. Try it for each note on the C major scale, keeping the hand position the same for all of these chords. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. Now a look at using bass notes. The bass note is the note that the chord is built up on. So if I play a C with the left hand, and then play a C major chord with the right hand, I'm playing a chord and a bass note. I can play all those chords that I played before, made from the C major scale like this. Try to learn Mary Had a Little Lamb, Jingle Bells and Ode to Joy by heart. And when you've done this, think about the scale degrees you're playing and what the chord is. I'll do one example with Mary Had a Little Lamb. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3, 5, 5, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 1. Let's talk about the major scale again. All major scales sound like this, no matter where you start on the piano. If I play F major, it sounds like this. A major sounds like this. For a bit of fun, have a go at building all the major scales from each other. It's really easy and there's only 12 of them. This is how you would do it. Play a C major scale all the way up to the D above the C octave. Now put your thumb onto the G and start to play using the same fingering as learnt for the scale of C. There's only one change you have to make, and that is that you have to play the black note instead of the white note with the fourth finger at scale degree 7. There's number 7, we play the black note. This note is called F sharp and the scale is called G major. I'll do it again and build the next scale from this new scale so you can easily follow what I've done. Don't forget to keep the black note, the F sharp, that you added to make the last scale, which was G major. Now, I put my thumb on the 5th degree of that new scale, which is D, and make the new scale. Adding the new black note at the 7th degree. If you wanted to, you could now create all scales like this, but you'd eventually get tied in knots. For now, if you like another challenge, build scales starting on A and E using the same method. Remember that you have to keep adding a new black note at scale degree number 7, the one that ends on the 4th finger. Let's look at the concept of reading music. Basically, we're dealing with pitch, time and space. So we need to be able to represent these three things. Going back to Ode to Joy, which you will have mastered by now, we could write it on paper like this. Notice I've grouped the notes in 4s to give the feeling of how the time feels. Each note falls on a beat, and I'll call each of these divisions of 4 a bar. There is a 4 at the start to indicate that there are 4 beats in each bar. When I see a 4 at the start, I will count myself in. It goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This way of writing music only shows the melody and no chords. So, we should show the chords as we played them earlier. It would look like this. Whilst this looks okay, it's actually incomplete because it tells us which notes to play, but not which octave they're in. If I didn't already know this piece, I could interpret it like this. So, thankfully, a great system has evolved over the centuries of music making. We write the pitches on 5 lines called the staff or stave. We still divide it up into bars and put a number at the start like we did before. This is called the time signature. The top number tells us how many beats there are in a bar, and the bottom one tells us what type of beat. The time signature of 4/4 is so common that some manuscripts have a C as the time signature, meaning common time, or 4/4. We use dots, or more correctly, notes, to show us the letter names on the piano instead of actual letters, as in the first example. So, armed with this information, we can now write the right hand of Ode to Joy like this. The notes used here are called quarter notes and half notes. In this example, the quarter notes are worth 1 beat and the half notes are worth 2 beats each. The time signature is telling us that there are 4 quarter notes in each bar. Notice how the bar with the 2 half notes still adds up to 4 beats. We still need to now show what the left hand is going to play. So the easiest thing to do is to add another stave for notes lower down on the keyboard. Piano music is typically written with 2 staves, one showing the treble or high pitches and one showing the bass or low pitches. You show this with a treble and a bass clef. This is how they normally look. So now, if we were to write Ode to Joy with the left-hand chords, we end up with this. It's important to accustom yourself to the names of the lines and the spaces in the stave. They're different on the treble stave to the bass stave, and there's an easy way to do it. On the treble stave, the lines read E, G, B, D and F. A simple phrase used to remember it is "Every good boy deserves fruit." The spaces spell F-A-C-E. There is a similar way to remember the bass clef. The lines are G, B, D, F and A. And a phrase to remember it is "Good boys deserve fruit always." The spaces are A, C, E and G. All cows eat grass. Remember back to Mary Had a Little Lamb? If we write it in notation, it looks like this. We've looked at the notes that are on the stave, but we also have to write notes outside of the pitches on the stave. To do this, we use ledger lines, which look like this. We use ledger lines to write A, B and C in the treble clef. We also need to show where not to play. To do this, we use what is called a rest. It tells us what beat to rest on and not to play. The quarter note rest looks like this, and the half note rest looks like this. Try playing this simple melody. Notice the rests are where I count, but I don't play. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now have a look at this piece in 3/4 time. The top number shows how many beats there are in the bar, and the bottom one shows what type of beats. There are 3 quarter note beats in each bar. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Some popular musical manuscripts also show the chord names above the melody. So far, we've read and played all the white notes on the piano and can write a scale of C major like this. Look at the written notes. They're made up of the head and the stem. Notice the side of the note that the stem is on when it's pointing up and down. Below the note B on the third line, the stems point up, and above it, they point down. This is done so that things don't get messy. It also keeps the stems basically within the stave and a lot easier to read. To show the black notes, we use sharps and flats. Here is F sharp, C sharp, B flat, and E flat. To cancel a sharp or flat, you use a natural sign. Let's look at the black notes on the keyboard and name them. The first thing to remember is that when you go up to a black note, you look at the white note to its left and give it that name plus a sharp sign. For example, here is C. To the right of it, upwards, we have C sharp. For flats, we go down to a black note from a white one. Find the name of a white note to the right of the black note you're naming and give it that name plus a flat sign. Here is B, so B flat must be here just to its left. You may have realised now that the black notes can have two names. For example, C sharp is the same as D flat. There are another couple of note lengths that you need to know: the whole note and the dotted half note. So now we have 4 different note lengths. In a bar of 4/4 time, we can show varying note lengths like this. Finally, here's one more note length, the 8th note. This is half the length of the quarter note and is written like this. Musical grammar has us group these together if there are a lot in a row, as it just makes it easier to read. We connect them with a beam. Here's another bar of combined note lengths. Remember that just as we need to show note lengths, we need to show rest lengths, or how long we don't play. Here are the rests for the new notes we've just learnt. The last thing we need to know about is the tie. It joins the lengths of 2 or more notes of the same pitch together to make one long note. The tied notes can be the same or different lengths. For example, let's look at On Top of Old Smoky. Here are some more examples of combinations of rhythms using rests, notes and ties. I've used just the one pitch, so all you have to do is read the rhythms. Make sure you count through these. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you see a time signature of 4/4, count 4 beats in and keep counting as you tap out the rhythms. If you see 3/4, count in 3 beats and always continue counting. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If you've never played the piano, you'll have to teach your fingers to operate independently and in ways that they haven't done before. The following exercises will give you the dexterity you need to play the styles presented in this lesson. The 4th finger is the weakest, so here's an exercise to strengthen it. Play this slowly and accurately, lifting the fingers. Now, here's a 5-finger exercise which starts like a scale. And in the left hand, this seemingly simple exercise builds your fingers' independence. Make sure you hold down the thumbs while playing the other notes. This one is always played slowly. It's not a speed exercise. This next exercise strengthens the 3rd, 4th and 5th fingers and gives them some independence. It's a repeating pattern that works its way up the scale one way and repeats its way down the scale the other way, so you don't really need to bother to read every note. Learn the pattern to see where it starts, where it changes and how it finishes. This next exercise spreads the fingers, building accuracy for chords and arpeggios. An arpeggio is when you play the notes of a chord one by one. I find it very beneficial to play classical music on the piano because, unlike popular music, classical music helps me to keep a check on my technique and not fall into bad habits. It requires more from me technically. Before we look at playing this classic by Bach, it's a good idea to play the scale of G major, being aware of the F sharp at the 7th degree. There being the 7th degree. Notice this piece requires a shift in hand position. It's in 3/4 time with 3/4 notes in every bar. 3/4 is often known as waltz time. Notice also how the first phrase falls under the 5 fingers. Then you have to move to the next position where the 5 fingers cover the notes you need. 1, 2, 3. Now here's another way to play this Bach piece by involving more of the left hand. 1, 2, 3. Another two popular piano solo pieces are Blue Danube Waltz by Strauss and Fur Elise by Beethoven. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Watch how I have to move my hand to another position in order to smoothly play from one note to the next. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to discuss how to accompany a singer or a solo instrument using just the piano. In popular songs, we almost always have a drum part, a bass part, and some kind of chordal work done on guitar or a piano or keyboard. The easiest way to play pop piano accompaniment is to use the left hand for the bass and bass drum rhythm and the right hand for the chords, snare drum and guitar rhythms, emphasising the beat. The common time signatures used are 4/4, 3/4 and 6/8. This brings me to voicing. If I were to play the chords in this song in this position called root position, I'd be moving my hands around the piano all the time and it would eventually sound a bit odd and even distracting to the listener. It's called root position because the chords are built up from the root of the scale they belong to. We've already built chords in C major using 1, 3 and 5. You can get around this slight clumsiness by using inversions of chords. A chord inversion is just the same notes of the chord rearranged in a different order or position. You can use inversions to keep your hands in the one position so you can move easily from one chord to another. I'll play the last accompaniment with inversions. 1, 2, 3, 4. To easily make chord inversions, you do this. Now let's look at accompanying a ballad. I'll play it on the piano using root chords on every snare drum beat, like I did in the previous song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This sounds a bit stodgy and lumpy without flow. A nicer way to do it is to arpeggiate the chords as well as play them in inversions so they flow together nicely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This song is in a time signature that we haven't discussed yet. It's called 6/8 and commonly has a lilting feel. You can also make the piano sound bigger by playing octaves in the bass. practice some drum rhythms between the hands. Boogie, or boogie-woogie piano, is a blues style that is upbeat and happy, in contrast to the blues, which is usually slower and more melancholy. It is most easily recognised by its repeating bass line, played in eighth notes or quavers. An easy way to get the left hand used to playing a bass line is to practice this simple tune with the right hand first until you are familiar with it and know it by heart. So then you can concentrate on the left hand. These examples use the three most common major chords, 1, 4 and 5. If you're playing in C major, these are C, F and G. Now we'll play Oh When the Saints Come Marching In over this new left-hand pattern. Once you feel comfortable playing the first left-hand exercise, try the following exercise. This next exercise uses eighth notes, which means the left hand is doing twice as much. This next one is a favourite of mine to use as an accompaniment to another instrument or a vocalist. It uses both hands for a nice full sound. Try playing the exercises in other keys like G major and F major to help you learn more chords and develop your listening skills. Work your way through it step by step. I'll play it in G major so you can hear how it will sound. Another interesting boogie style is the moving bass part. This is a simple starter. Use the same fingering for each chord. Now to get both hands used to playing, I'll play the major chords over the top. Here's another pattern. I'll play this one with a bounce. Now I'll get the right hand involved and put the chords over the top of it. make it more interesting by playing the right-hand chords in different rhythms. I'll do this to a drum part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, here's two great boogie bass lines that you just can't do without. 1, 2, 3, 4. This bass line will get you ready for this next one, which is a bit more interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4. As mentioned earlier, there's no such thing as a loud pedal on a piano. However, there is a soft pedal. Using the soft left pedal is fairly easy. You press it when you want to play a very soft passage of music, or if you like the way the piano sounds when you use it. As well as making the piano soft, it makes a very delicate sound. Coordination is needed to use the right or sustain pedal. If you're playing chords, you would hold the pedal down for the time that you play the one chord, then momentarily lift the pedal when you move to the next chord. We'll use the ballad example from earlier. If you don't lift the pedal for a change of chord, you get this type of sound. Not good. Now I want to give you some chord progressions to learn. Once you know how to play a chord from memory, you can simply write the shorthand for it. For example, G major is written as G and F major is written as F. It is assumed that a letter name on its own indicates a major chord. So far we've only looked at making major chords. A minor chord is made by lowering the third of a chord by one semitone. Remember, a semitone is the smallest division on the piano. It's the distance from one note to the very next note. It's the distance from this note to this one, or this one to this one. If we take the chord of C major, which would just be written as C, the notes are C, E and G. Remember, the notes in this order are called root position. The E is the third of the chord, no matter what order they're played in. So if I play the chords of C in this order, or in this order, the E is still the third. So to make the minor, you would lower the E by one semitone, and that would make you play the next note to the left of E, which is E flat. Chords always derive their name from the bass note, which is also known as the tonic or root note. In this example, the bass note is C. Chord names always relate back to the major scale, even if they're minor, but you'll see how this works shortly. Here is G major, G, B and D. Now lower the third, the B, by one semitone to B flat, and you have G minor, and it is abbreviated as large G, small m. Here are some helpful chord progressions for songwriting or just playing around with. and you can hear them as I play them. Try playing with the drum rhythms at the end of this DVD. So far, we've only looked at 3-note chords. Remember how we made them by playing every second note in the scale? We can add a 4th note by following the same pattern. Just as we did before, you can play all the way up the scale with 4-note chords. The chord names are C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G7, A minor 7 and B diminished 7. Just take note that a major 7 chord is a different chord to a 7 chord. These chords have a lovely rich sound and work beautifully when voiced nicely. I could go on for hours talking about chord theory, but I'll stop after this one as you already have a huge palette of harmonic colours to use. As well as playing the chords we've just done, you can play different bass notes against the chords. For instance, we can play C, and then C with an E in the bass, and then F, and F with a G in the bass. Playing a progression of chords with the same bass note is a technique borrowed from classical music, which is called a pedal, and it comes from a time when organ playing was popular and you held your foot on a bass pedal while changing the harmonies on the keyboard. If someone says to pedal a C over all these changes, they would mean this. Bach did it beautifully at the end of the prelude in C major. Here are some more popular chord progressions to get you going. To help develop your ear, choose your favourite chord progression and move it or transpose it into other keys. For example, A minor on G, F major 7 to E would move down a tone to G minor on F, E flat major 7 and D. Now take note of the relationship between the chords. It stays the same no matter where you move it to. There's a hierarchy within the chords where some are more important because they have specific duties. Our 1 chord is also known as the tonic or root chord. It is the most important because this is home. Listen to this little blues tune. It starts on a C, then moves through a couple of other chords and lands back at a C chord where it all feels complete. If I play it again and land on another chord, it will feel unfinished. The next most important chord is the 5 chord. It always wants to go home. That is, it pulls or leads toward the 1 or root tonic chord. G7 always wants to go to C, not E minor or F. It's all about how much tension or pull the chord has in relation to other chords. The next most important chord is the 4 chord. It is not as strong a pull as the 5 chord. Listen to how it pulls a bit, but not as much. F to C is much gentler. You can often hear this progression used in the Amen in traditional church music. All other chords basically have equal standing. The 2-5-1 progression is particularly strong. By putting the 2 before the 5, it is in a way becoming a 5-1 of its own. D minor, going down to G, is a 5-1 in the scale of G. I'll play a few chords that don't really have much relationship to each other and don't have tension in release, and see how you can hear that it just meanders. Just don't have any pull to them. Now I'll play something that has some tension and release. One of the things I find exciting about the piano is improvisation. That is, playing off the top of your head without having planned anything in advance. Of course, it can be done on any instrument, but on the piano, you can accompany yourself while you do it, and it's very gratifying. Because there's so many styles in which you can improvise, I can only cover a few, and even then only scratch the surface. So I'll get started with some popular ones so we can have some fun. Being familiar with the common major and minor chords will be a big help. There are 3 scales that are important to know, and armed with these, you'll be able to play most styles, from rock to jazz to country. Play the scale of C major in 1 octave and look at the keys. Now, find the 6th degree, which is A. If you now play the scale of C major starting on A, you are playing another scale known as A minor. There are many types of minor scales. They become minor because their 3rd degree is lowered by a semitone. It's the same thing you do to make a minor chord. This particular minor scale, starting from the A of C major, is called A natural minor. Do the same thing now with the G major scale. Play it, then see it on the keyboard. Now start on its 6th degree and you will play E natural minor scale. When you create a minor scale in this way, you are creating what's known as the relative minor to the major scale you started with. So A minor is the relative minor scale to C major, E minor is the relative minor scale to G major, and so on. Take some time to learn these scales to begin with. Now, the minor scales. The next two scales will probably be the most useful scales you'll ever learn for basic improvisation. These are called pentatonic scales. To create a pentatonic scale, take a major scale and remove the 4th and 7th degrees. It only has 5 notes in it. In C, you would play C, D, E, G, and A. The pentatonic scale is a major sounding scale, so when you want to improvise a melody over a major chord, you can use this scale. And it sounds nicer than just playing a major scale over a major chord because it has intervals or gaps built into it, whereas a major scale is just one note after another. Have a listen to how it sounds when I play it. Playing just the black keys makes up a pentatonic scale. It is also a very pretty sound if played like this in Morning from Peer Gynt. If you had a chord progression that belonged to the scale of C, you could use the pentatonic scale to improvise a melody. Now we'll look at the blues scale. You get a blues scale in the same way you get a minor scale from a major scale. It is the relative minor scale to the pentatonic scale, but with a slight twist. It is certainly minor because it has the 3rd lowered by a semitone. Start on C and play the C pentatonic scale, and then look at the keys to see the scale. You then start on A instead of C, and you get A minor pentatonic. Now raise the 4th degree, which in this case is a D sharp. And voila, you have an A blues scale. Listen to it. It's definitely a bluesy sound. It's a very satisfying scale to play because it has intervals built in and some nice tensions and releases. 1, 2, 3, 4. Improvisation is something that you do by ear. You won't use anything written other than maybe a few chords that you can improvise a melody over. Jazz musicians tend to often do this. An easy way to start improvisation is to begin in the key of C major and use two of its chords, C and G. Remember, these letters are shorthand for C major and G major, also the 1 and 5 chords. Begin by counting yourself in at a comfortable tempo or play along with one of the drum grooves provided. Play the C chord for 1 bar, then play the G chord for 1 bar and keep repeating it. 1, 2, 3, 4. As these two chords belong to the scale of C major, technically any note from that scale should work as a melody. You'll find that some notes work better than others. Once you're comfortable doing this, try it in a few other keys. Another helpful tool when learning to improvise melody is to sing one first, either in your head or out loud. Then try to play what you just sung. This is also another great way of training your ear to hear and then play. It's very handy. When doing this, think about if the melody goes up or down. For instance, take the melody to Three Blind Mice. Think about where it goes up and down, then try to play it. Choose other well-known melodies and do this to fast-track your ear training. I would have left this lesson unfinished if I didn't mention these last two chords. The new chords are the diminished and the augmented chords. These chords have a tremendous amount of pull to them. To make a C diminished chord, take the C major chord and flatten the third as you do to make a minor, and then flatten the fifth as well. The notes will be C, E flat and G flat. Try this with other chords. To make a C augmented chord, take the C major chord and sharpen the fifth. You get C, E and G sharp. Again, try this with other chords. You've taken the first important step in learning to play. The next very important step is your regular practice of what you've learnt. You won't miraculously learn to play the piano by simply watching this DVD, but I do hope you're inspired to put in the time practicing what you've seen and heard. While we've covered all the basics and then some, these lessons can't be all things to all people. So if you find a section you wish to learn more about, go for it. There's a wealth of information available via books, the internet and teachers to further your knowledge. Have fun.